Hello and welcome to episode 411 of the Filmmakers Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk filmmaking, from indie film to studio films to high-end TV to documentaries to everything in between. How to get them made, how to make them, and how to try not to royally F it up, in our very, very humble opinion. I'm Giles Alderson. I'm a writer, director, and a producer, and I'm delighted to say on this week's show, we have the team behind the excellent indie feature film, Black Dog. Director and writer George Jaques and producer Ken Petrie sit down with myself and Dom Lenoir, and they chat all about how they made Black Dog. Black Dog is about two teenage boys from very different London backgrounds, and they embark on a road trip up north together to Scotland. And as they start to open up about their past, the boys learn they have far more in common than they first thought. This movie is co-written by Jamie Flatters, who stars in the movie as well, and he is excellent. Along with Keenan Munn Francis, the cast is rounded out by some excellent supporting artists, including Nicholas Pinnock, Paul Kay, Ruby Stokes, Hattie Morahan, Jason Fleming, and Leanne Best, just to name a few. The movie is produced by Ken Petrie, as well as George Jaques, Jamie Flatters, and the fantastic Ian Sharp, who is not only a brilliant actor and producer in his own right, but he is one of the hosts of the Filmmakers Podcast. Yeah, he's one of us. This film was lensed, cinematographized by Hamish Anderson, and it was cast by Daniel Edwards and Lucy Allen. This movie is out now. You can go watch it, and please go support indie films. That's one of the main reasons why we set up this podcast in the first place, so that we can champion the underdog, or in this case, the Black Dog. On the podcast, we talk about how George started a production company at 16 years old, why he wanted to make movies, why Ken came on board and came on board into George's world, and why and how they made 3 short films in a week. They also talk about raising funds, how to get free products in your movie, why it's so important to be prepared and organised, and getting sales agents on board. We also talk about getting a big exec producer on board, and why you need to reach out to people and ask. And George gives some amazing directing techniques and advice, not only on rehearsals, but on camera and lenses. And Ken gives some excellent producing advice on how you can unlock people's potential. This is George Jaques' debut feature film. He has made quite a few shorts before now, but he's also a very established actor, starring not only in A Town Called Malice, but The Serpent Queen, as well as the feature film Surprised by Oxford. Ken Petrie is a very established producer, but he was also a special effects technician, working on films such as Valhalla Rising, Warhorse, World War Z, White House Down, Muppets Most Wanted, as well as producing Pacifier and Enemy Within. Right, no further ado, let's get to it. This is a bumper edition. It's a feature film length edition, but it's worth every bit of your time because there is so much knowledge and advice given to you to go out there and make your feature film too. Here it is. This is myself and Dom chatting to George Jaques and Ken Petrie, all about indie filmmaking and their movie together, Black Dog.
We're talking Lidos. Just come from Hampstead Lido. It was very nice. Best Lido, I would say. Although I am biased.
Strong. I tooting Lido is pretty good.
Tooting your own horn.
Yes, I see what you did there.
Yeah, it's just perfect sort of summer holiday sort of energy, isn't it?
I think I used to have to, as a kid, go swimming there, like on swimming classes, because my school was down the road when I was at primary school, and it was like the
lovely
pool in the world. Like doing one length there is like 200 lengths elsewhere. Makes you're out of breath by the end of it.
Yeah,
it's a very special training place.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever swum in a Lido. I've done.
Yeah.
I've done the sea. I've done lots of seas and oceans.
What about locks?
You've just done
locks,
locks.
Ken?
I was going to say.
Lochs, as we like to call them. But yes, exactly.
I feel like we've spoken a little bit too much about Lidos and swimming so far, and we're here to talk about your fantastic film. So, welcome to the podcast.
There's not much swimming in Black Dog, but there's a little bit. So
There's a little bit. Yeah.
Come back to Lido. Don't worry.
There's a bit. It meant you had to put a camera in water, right? Twice.
In a pool and in the sea.
Yeah.
Wow.
Big budget.
Did you do them both on a similar day so you could hire the casing on the same sort of?
No, we actually didn't, because that would have been way too smart, Giles. We wanted to make it really tricky for ourselves and as far apart as possible. We brought up on one of the days we had like the marine department who had like saved my life, not even being dramatic, but on a show when I was acting, they'd pulled me out the water with hypothermia. So we brought them up to do the beach work, and then we had a different camera on the other day.
Exciting. What is the logistics of shooting underwater for us non-mermaids?
Non-mermaids.
Yeah.
The sea was you non-mermaids. The sea was quite tricky because it was we found this amazing beach that we had scouted, and I sort of fell very much in love with, and then was like to Ken, hey, we've got to work out how we're going to shut this beach. And I think it was on our recce, Ken, there was like seals. I don't know if you remember that, but it was just like all these seals disappeared, like heads coming out the water. And
at the time, love seals. Yeah.
So beautiful. And at the time, our second AD was like, you can't film here. There's seals. And we were like, wait, what? And our water safety team were like, you can absolutely film here.
Yeah, didn't get his seal of approval.
Yeah. Oh, another one.
I feel like we need a bell, like ding.
Don't count. We'll be here all night.
It's such dad jokes. There should be a dad joke button.
There really should. Yeah.
So we brought up the marine department. So JJ Sticklin was our marine coordinator, and his job was basically to keep the actors safe. It's quite complicated, and I think having done quite a bit in the water as an actor, you sort of know how quickly you get cold,
or drown. Yeah,
or drown. And you know, even though we were shooting in June, it still felt pretty cold. So we designed like sort of 5 shots, but we were going to stay on the same lens and sort of just like move the position. It just meant that we didn't have to like take the camera out the bag. We could sort of just keep rolling and keep Jamie and Keenan sort of relatively warm. And we divided the night into sort of like we'd do the water work, then take a break and then warm them up and then wet them down again to look like they'd just come out the water. So it's all about like planning, and I think a lot of thought, and then obviously the nature of it, everything goes differently, and and we just totally threw that out the window in moments.
It's such a challenging thing doing water filming. I randomly ended up doing like an ident for the BBC, which was like I think it was in like February sometime, and it was supposed to be in like a heated Lido. And all the people that done like cold water exposure were like kind of okay. But generally people, even though it's 24-degree water, when you're in there for like half an hour at a time, it's shocking how quickly people get cold. And as soon as you then have a cold wind and you get out of the water, I mean, you know, is that an issue in terms of scheduling? I mean, you know, on an independent film, making sure that you have enough time where people can go in, and then what's the effect on the rest of the day? You know, if your actors are going to be cold, whether they need time to recover for like, you know, the next day's shoots, all those kind of considerations.
I think it's, you know, it is tough. It was one of our last days on this.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
And managed to find budget to get us some wetsuits and stuff like that. So we did have that stuff on hand, and we had a heated tent. But I think it really is like you plan really hard and you sort of plan for the worst. You sort of, you know, roughly what shots you need in a really minimal way to sort of cover the scene. And then if the actors are all right, you can keep going and maybe push it a little bit. But it is, you can start to see where people get cold and lines start going wrong, or, you know, people forget stuff because your body does sort of go into a bit of like, oh, this isn't, I don't want to stay in here.
And I think you've got to trust the experts you bring as well, right? You've got to, like the marine safety guys know what to look out for, and you know, the medics on set and stuff as well. They're like, you know, you got to, you know, when they start raising an eyebrow, you go like, okay, we just take a beat, and you know, it sometimes unfortunately upsets the flow of filming. But at the end of the day, like we've got to just make sure that everyone's safe and you know, going to survive the night, I suppose, or the afternoon. So
it's so important.
Lots of planning. Yeah,
it's so important. Yeah, I remember on Arthur and Merlin, we had to get in the freeze. Apparently, it was the most cold water in Wales, and they made a point of it, but I didn't tell the actors that because I was like, there's no way they're going to get in. And they had to get in full costume as well, which needed to be dry. And I just remember the drama around it and the politics and how we do it and how quickly we get in and out. And it's really important, the safety side of it for actors, etc.
Yeah. It's quite like out of body in some ways as a director, because you're not only just trying to get like the film, but then you're like, you've got the medics in your ears, then you've got like water safety, and then you've got your producers, and then you've got like, and you're sort of like, I don't know what I'm looking at anymore. There's sort of so much you're looking after. I think on those days, particularly as a director, you sort of go like actors first, and then the shots and stuff have to be second, which is quite a weird sort of dynamic, because obviously your job is slightly to sort of get the film, but you sort of have to make sure that they're okay. And then on the swimming pool day, it was a lot easier because we were in an indoor heated pool, and Jamie, our lead actor, Jamie Flatters, he had done a lot of Avatar too, so he had sort of been really used to doing a lot of like long breath work, that he could hold his breath for an exceptionally long amount of time. So that
was really impressive. Like
we watched him for
what numbers are we talking?
Yeah, well, we watched him do like a breathing thing on the side, and Ken and I were sort of like looking, being like, what's he up to? He was like doing like deep breaths, like Wim Hof type thing.
Oh, yeah.
And he got in, and we were like, he's doing this stuff underwater, and I was like, is the battery going to die? Like, he is holding it for quite a while, okay, guys. And so
with that sort of stuff as well, it's so much like instinct for the actor as well. Like we're rolling, like you get in, like do your beats, and then when you're ready, we'll pick up from there. And he just continued to hold his breath, and we're like, I mean, he's going to come into this at some stage, right? He's going to like exhale, and anyway.
He never did.
Also,
eventually he did.
I don't think I told him all I needed was the bit where he shouts in the water as well. So we had this massive long take of
3 minutes of
breath holding.
Stillness. We don't need this, Jamie.
You got to let people have their moment, I suppose. Sometimes, like if they've trained for something and it's like their thing, it's just sometimes you just got to let them have it, haven't you?
Also, I had to jump in, test the pool as well. It was a hot day. I had to make sure it was perfect.
Yeah, got your swimming trunks on. Yeah, got your speedos on.
George is an actor's director, right? Which mostly, apart from the excellence that brings in directing, it manifests itself as, I'll just have a go at it first. So like every time we do anything remotely I mean, all of it's enjoyable, right? But anything that's a little bit out of the ordinary, George is like, oh yeah, hang on, let me just have a look for. I'll rehearse this fight scene first with the fight coordinator. Yeah, that's okay. Brilliant. It's
my skills really the whole time. Why do you think I wrote a film, Ken, set in a summer camp? It means I can just go like, swings and rock climbing.
There you go. Exactly.
But even like, logistically, Black Dog, we're talking about the water stuff. Like, obviously it takes tons of prep, tons of organization. But we made a road movie, so we have to spend a lot of time on the road. And obviously that's quite, as you guys well know, when you're filming, it takes a lot of logistical planning, a lot of specialist equipment often. And, Black Dog was like the independent filmmakers handbook of all the challenging things to do with not very much money. And do it safely and do them well and deliver excellence on screen, So
well, let's jump back a little, shall we?
How did it start?
Yeah. Why this film? How did you get together? How did you raise the money? We'll go all into that because that's, what our audience love. I love this film, by the way. I thought it was excellent. I love the characters. I love their relationship. Jamie's performance is outstanding. I thought performances across the board were, but I just really enjoyed this film. I thought it was just so touching and warm and interesting and had a message, but yet, like you say, it's a road movie about two adolescents who don't know who they are yet, and you had this wonderful connection, and it just made you want to watch them. So well done.
Thanks so much.
How did it start? Let's go, because obviously you made lots of short films. You were an actor yourself, George. How did you get in touch with Ken? How did it all collaborate? And obviously Ian Sharp as well with Sharp House, which we'll touch on as well at some point. And you've got another amazing producer in there, which we'll come to very soon as your exec. But let's start with how it all unfolded and what the story was.
So I started my company when I was 16, so I was pretty weird and young to do that. And we mainly worked in theatre at the beginning, so it was pretty much solely theatre shows. And I put this show on about the teenage drug culture in South London where I grew up. And I didn't know what I was doing, and sort of ended up producing it, directing it, acting in it, and having written it. And it's sort of that thing of, I think, because I was 16, I didn't know that wasn't normal. I just thought, I'll just get loads of actors from all different parts of London together, and we'll just make a thing and put it on. And then that thing sort of sold out very quickly, and I got a call from the CEO of Sky 2 weeks after it finishing, and it was it was sort of really surreal to me because I didn't know anyone in the industry. And then to get that call being like, my daughter happened to come to the show. She said it was one of the best things she's ever seen. Can we meet you?
Wow.
I was like, what?
Nice.
And that was sort of how it started. It was sort of like,
That's outrageous.
I always say it was like that thing of, that was a really lucky person to be in the audience, that I didn't know them, but they wouldn't have been in the audience if I didn't make it. And I think that's the like the real trick. And so one of those actors was Jamie Flatters.
Right.
And he was in the show originally, and he was sort of like helping me with the directing side of things. And then he called me and he was like, George, I've just landed the lead in Avatar 2. I've got to leave. And I was like, how dare you quit my show to go do
this? Is way more important than who,
like,
Jim? Who?
We are doing a show at Abandoned Railway Arch in London Bridge. You can't leave. But he did, and he went off and he went to LA for a while in those quite formative years between 16 to 18. And then when he came back, I'd sort of done quite a few theatre shows, and then I'd written my first short film, which I think I had about 500 quid to make. And I'd never been on a film set.
Right.
I didn't know what a first AD was, but I had sort of asked someone to be one, and quickly learned what a DOP was and learned, like, all that stuff. But I think for me, I kind of took that theatre background of just like rehearsing it like a play, and then just sort of shooting with cameras, and then really learned on my crew for that. But we made it with, one soundy. It was like a real minimal crew, and Jamie was the lead in that. So I guess that sort of like reconnected us. And we were both 18 and we were really young. And, I had my company, he was doing some very big stuff, and we both sort of felt quite young in a very adult industry. And I think quite like, we watched all of our friends go to university or film school or drama school or go into jobs or go traveling. And it was sort of that weird thing of going like, oh, we're not totally where we want to be. We're feeling very young. Like it was a really weird time. And I turned down uni and landed this big lead role in an Amazon show and was like, I've made it. And the whole show got cancelled before I even shot a day, and was like, this sucks. So I was back in the barbershop I was working at, and it was this really weird time. So we sort of wanted to make a film about South London, where we both grew up, and about two young men that sort of like are totally different but connect, and end up on the road together. And we wanted to make something that we felt like we could tell and do it in quite a unique way, I think, because having grown up in South London, it's sort of every street can be different and every road can be different, and every turn you take is sort of, it leads to something else. And I think that's one of my favorite bits about Black Dog is you never really know where it's going. So that was sort of how it started, and we wrote it together when we were 18. Probably took us about a year and a half. And then I had met Ken during that time. So a composer called Blair, who worked on my first short film, he set Ken and I up for a dinner date, basically. When I was Ken, I must have been 19 at the time. I'd just, finished doing some theatre stuff and that first short, and Ken had seen it and come to the premiere of it and stuff. And then we went for dinner. And then Ken, you can take over this bit because I feel like I'll just talk so long.
What did you have for dinner?
Tell us about the dinner. Yeah, what did you eat?
Did you have wine?
Dom cares.
No, I don't remember what I ate, but it was a good dinner. I remember that. So, it was. I mean, Blair, who introduced us, I've known just about my whole life. We met each other at primary school, and then he ended up scoring Black Dog in the kind of circle of life of everything. But yeah, so Blair introduced us. And I think George he was still quite keen to make another couple of short films at that stage, which, he was 19 and trying to sort of grow as a filmmaker. So after our successful dinner date, we then had a second coffee date and got into it all. And I think you had some ideas of what you wanted to do, didn't you? But I think from a kind of slightly older perspective, it was like, what's really going to help you develop as a director. So we came up with this ridiculous plan of making, George probably came up with it really, but making 3 short films in a week, a 3-day, a 2-day, and a 1-day shoot, all very sort of creatively different, to just try and flex some directorial muscles.
Nice idea. You've got the hired kit in, you've got the crew hired in. It's a great idea. And you've not just got 1 short, you've got 3.
Exactly. And that, so often, like if you boil down the jump from short film to feature film, it's just more days.
It's 2 days. Yeah.
So exactly that. It was about, look, we'll do 8, we'll do 6 filming days. And so I think we did 3 days, then a day, then the 1 day, then a day off, then the 2 days or something. Anyway, the films, the shorts, like, you know, my take on them is that they're all fantastic. They've all done exactly what they needed to do. But we just went right into the first lockdown as soon as we wrapped. We wrapped like February 2020. So they were completed. Post was totally done in lockdown, basically entirely remotely. And then, you know, it very quickly became like, what's the debut feature? Like, what can we do? Oh, the script is already kind of evolved. And I had read that kind of early draft, and it was clear there was just something absolutely magnetic about this script. And George, you know, and Jamie, and just like the whole thing that was coming together. So yeah, long story short, we managed to kind of set up Black Dog before the short films had a chance of playing in real life film festival. We decided not to release them digitally, virtually. We wanted to save it, but by that time we'd kind of got Black Dog set up. So those shorts exist, but they weren't necessarily the conventional stepping stone into the debut feature. And the script really, like I say, like everybody that read it connected with it. And Giles, I'm sure you're gonna touch on other people involved, but like that's the common theme throughout is everyone that read it fell in love with it and was like, how can I help? How can I add value? How can I be a part of this?
I think it's worth saying as well, it was like with those shorts, it was very much, you know, I made one short that was about eating disorders at the Royal Ballet and another short about two young men who wanted to see sort of like how far one would go to help his mum. And then another one was about a car flipped upside down on fire and a dad and his son caught in a car and him trying to rip his son out. And it was like, when do you give up? So they were quite ambitious shorts as well. And I really like, you know, I look back at that time and most of the time producers would sort of go like, you know, and Ken and I produced together, but they'd sort of go, no, you can't do that. Like, it's on fire. And Ken was just like, yeah, right, then let's just do it. And, you know, cut to us in a field, Ken with his old special effects tool belt out and us with a Land Rover that we had basically been given by the Bond team to blow up. And it was like, what is
and then someone locked the keys inside it and I had to smash one of the windows to get it.
I think you locked it in. I think you wanted to.
I think you did it on purpose. Yeah.
But do you remember the hammer broke as well? Like I literally swung back and the end of the hammer just flew across the field. And I was like,
really?
This isn't great.
I mean, let's talk a little bit about getting this Land Rover off Bond. Like,
yeah,
that's a storyboard
details here. Yeah.
So early days. So I'd written this film, and Ken, I remember him saying, "George, this is when you're going to realize the power of what you write on page, or like on the paper." And I was like, "Yeah, but it's just a car on fire." And then you're like, "Oh wow, we are actually going to flip a car." So Ben Quirk, who works with Ken and I a lot, he's my first AD, and he's also a co-producer on all of our projects together. Ken introduced him to me and they had worked together. Ken was originally on World War Z.
Yeah, back when I was a special effects technician and explosive engineer. Yeah, I met Ben was a third on World War Z. I was a special effects tech. And yeah, we just kept in touch. And he actually did he did a short for me when I was building the company, still doing shorts really. And we went out to Mississippi and had a bit of fun and made a cool story about Elvis Presley, which used to do really well. So he was just like one of those great people you pull together. And he was like, oh, well, I guess I could call the Bond guys because he'd just done Bond and was like, the action vehicles guys will help us out. And one of my old effects bosses, his brother is also involved in the Bond cars. And yeah, it just kind of like came from there. And then it's like, okay, so we've got the car, how do we set it on fire? And everybody kind of looks at me like, well, hey, you used to do this for a living, so how do we set the car on fire? And I'm like,
ask the arsonist.
Like member of the Institute of Explosive Engineers, but I've hung the tool belt up, right? So I was like, I know how to do it, but shall we get someone else?
Interjecting, but Ken would put that tool belt on us any opportunity. We have made so many films together now. It comes out.
Did you wear it on the first dinner date?
Yeah, pretty much. It's in the boot of my car, man. Honestly,
whip it out any opportunity. Check out my tool belt. Look at
it's like Batman's utility belt has got multiple things on it, right? So true. Why not have it close? Anyway, this amazing old boss of mine, Dave Watkins, who's a BAFTA nominated, top biggest movies in the world, special effects supervisor, agreed to come and help us as well. And yeah, like all the pieces just fell into place. Like lots of favors, lots of big borrowing and stealing, but everybody got it, right? Everybody got what was on the page. Everybody got the filmmaker that we were all getting behind. And, I'd like, as a producer, that's one of the things that I love about working with George, is that he just really brings like another dimension. He's clearly talented. Like, it's better if you're not on this call while we're talking about this, George. But anyway, he's really talented, but he gets it, and he tries to add value and help everybody get to the start line, which I think is a real X factor that is a superpower for anybody really that's in those positions.
Just to sort of jump on this, because I've heard of George in sort of whispered hushes of child prodigy, obviously like older than child, but you know what I mean.
No,
like, that's the vibe.
That's okay.
But obviously, as a producer, it's tough. I mean, a lot of producers are like, okay, well, actually, we just want named directors that have like been in the same with like the BFI when they're looking for directors. They always want people that are fresh out of the pot and have new ideas. They want people that are like like A-list directors or whatever. Obviously, George has amazing talent, but like how do you sort of cope with those struggles as a producer in terms of like the financing and is it literally just that everyone who sees the work and what he's sort of trying to do is just like, okay, yeah, we'll take a punt on this because he's great, or are there challenges there?
There are challenges, truthfully. Everybody that seems to come into our stratosphere, our kind of like orbit on this stuff, absolutely gets it, but there's always something that stops someone writing a check.
Mm-hmm.
Like in anything in life,
like a pen.
Exactly. I like my tool belt. Always got a pen handy as well.
Oh, here we go. You can sign it now.
You can sign it now. Yeah, I mean, making any
or a hammer if
or a hammer.
more persuasion's required.
I'll take a thumbprint in blood, like anything. Just make your mark on the contract.
Totally.
Retina,
retinal scan. Yeah, we'll do it all. Really, flesh, like whatever you like. And but like it's so every movie's hard, right? So I think it's easy to kind of get caught up in how hard it is, but this is what we're all choosing to do and choosing to make a go of. And ultimately, for me, I've got to connect with the filmmaker. I've got to connect with the story, the creative of it all. And then it's hard anyway. So why not try and make something worth it?
Yeah.
And that's kind of always been a bit of a guiding principle. But yeah, I mean, it was hard. We made this movie on fumes. Like it was extremely, extremely challenging for the underwater stuff, for moving a crew on a road trip, for all the stuff that inevitably swallows up resources that isn't necessarily on screen. That makes it really hard. But I'm like, we have to try to make great stuff, right? And you want to affect people and tell something meaningful. It doesn't always have to be extremely worthy or whatever, but it's got to connect with people, right? So I think anytime I've come across filmmakers like that or stories like that, I'm just keen to sort of be a part of it or help if I can help, or like, it's there's enough room in this business for us all. So I think it would be great if more people try to help elevate everyone around them as well as just going on their own journey. So
love that, Ken. So true. So you're in a position where you've got your script, or you certainly got your project. You know you want to work together. You made shorts together. You're really happy to work together. How did you go from there? Because you said you made it on fumes just then. But in terms of, there's going to be some budget.
Land Rover fumes.
Land Rover fumes. Yeah,
Ding.
Exactly.
that was very
Please,
blown
Ken,
up.
keep doing this.
Land Rover was very like blown up by that point. And I think there was one thing on the
oh man, that thing got destroyed. Like
that one landed.
Yeah. Ding.
There was one thing on the short stuff. I always like, because everyone always goes like, how do you make shorts and stuff? And whenever I do any sort of like talks or anything now,
cut off the legs.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
Ting, don't even ting that one. It's not worth it.
But I think it's that thing where people sort of try and raise money and sort of go out and go like, oh, let's raise as much as we can. But really, like, no one sort of goes, hey, what happens if I call this lighting company and ask them to sponsor it? Like ink is free is a phrase we use a lot because it's sort of, it doesn't cost anything to put a logo on the end. And if you go like, hey, rather than trying to raise $1,000, let's get the cameras for free from, Ari and call them and go, look, this is what I'm trying to do. It's 2 days, like help me out. And I think that was something that Ken and I very much took forward into Black Dog. And I think truthfully, if we hadn't had that attitude, half the stuff wouldn't have been possible, you know. So we had the script and we had, you know, I knew obviously Jamie was attached to play Nathan, I was attached to direct it, and Ken was on board to produce it.
Sorry, just to interrupt before you carry out, had you ever thought that you would be in it at any point?
There was definitely like at the beginning when you're writing it, you know, Jamie would often write from the perspective of Nathan, and I would write from the perspective of Sam. And that's just how we were both like not really that sure how to write back then. It was a long time ago, and I think that meant that it was a bit more tangible, but more like, you know, one person could look after one character, the other could look after the other one, and then you sort of like look after the whole structure and shape of it. So there were definitely like moments where I was like, wow, you know, this feels really exciting as an actor. But I think it was so clear to me that we wanted to cast someone from the global majority. And also I was very lucky that I sort of went away and did 3 lead roles back to back as an actor. So I sort of felt like that acting like must have very much been like, you know, itched and stuff. You know, I felt like, you know, I was really happy with where everything was going with the acting, and I didn't want the directing to fall back. And so it sort of just felt very clear that I would make that like my debut as a director. But also I'm not one of those directors that could stand on set in costume, ready to go, like to jump into a scene. Because I think when I work as an actor, I sort of really want to give it everything. And when I work as a director, I want to be there for my actors. So it sort of felt really counterintuitive to sort of do both. So I sort of went, right, well, I'll take a back seat on this one. There's enough going on as a debut, you know, as we sort of all know, it's complicated enough. So we part that. And then it was sort of Ken and I decided, like, you know, in the UK, it's really hard to make a feature without a sales agent on board. You know, really, I think, especially in the early days, I think when you don't have a big studio behind you and you don't have, you know, a big, you know, global rights buy or any of that stuff behind you, it's important to sort of find a champion of the film. So Ken, we cold emailed most of them, to be honest. It was like guessing people's emails. Like there's an email checker software that we used the whole time, and we sort of worked it out and just sent them a little bit about the film.
First name dot last name.
Yeah, exactly. Always
classic.
Initials.
We knew some of them, right? But it's like you gotta, or you see them at markets or whatever, and it's always such an interesting thing with the sales companies because they have a like cyclical business, don't they? Where they go to all these markets, you know, and they have the prep time before the market, then they have the market, then they have the follow up, and it's, you know, I think each one's different when they're looking to sort of attach themselves to new content, and in particular, debuts are just extremely hard for anyone to get behind, especially the hard nosed commercial sort of sales companies. But yeah, I mean, George, I'm sort of interrupted you a bit there, but yeah, I mean, ultimately, like we got in touch with the sales companies we thought would do a great job, and then we were very fortunate that we had multiple offers from sales companies, and we were able to choose based off the script, George directing and Jamie being in it.
I mean, how do you actually get them to sign up front? Because I mean, as you said, like, one of the hardest things is to get a sales agent up front. One of the harder things on top of that is when you don't have like cast or the budget in place, and it's an independent, because those are the kind of films where like it feels like a real punt for, you know, the sales agents, and they're often looking like, okay, well, we'll look at it when it's finished, and then if it's good, then we'll take it. I mean, obviously the script is good, and you guys are good, but like, I mean, was there any persuading needed, or was it just, you know, just read the script? Oh, we've got to be part of this.
The worst thing you're going to be told when you're making your debut is it's execution dependent, and people seem to scream at you the whole time. It's so
annoying. Yeah,
like, you know, you're like, that doesn't help anyone. But I sort of get it from afar. You know, it's like this industry is very against taking any risks. You know, as we can see with the stuff being made at the moment in the UK and elsewhere. You know, it seems like a lot of remakes, which are great, but you know, it sort of goes
but
like,
are they?
Yeah, I don't feel like there's not much original content being made. So we certainly got told that by a lot of people, and then I think we met a few independent, and Ken and I, you know, Independent Entertainment, who came on board as our sales agent. We met them, and they I think we sort of like brought it up. We were like, you know, we know that it's execution dependent. We know all these different things, and but we're not expecting a 20 million quid budget. You know what I mean? We know like our limitations, but we want to shape this project with you. Like, we want you to add your value now and help us. You know, when we suggest an actor like Nicholas Pinnock, we want to know if that helps. You know, we want to know which actors may and stuff. We want to know what we need to get on set in terms of EPK and stills and stuff. And so I think we sort of sold it to them as a real collaboration.
And they just got it creatively. It felt like they got it as well, you know, like what the story was trying to be, as well as the production trying to be. But yeah,
So
exactly that. They're just like, this is what they do. They go to those markets, they speak to those buyers. As much as as much as they could feed in on the commerciality of it, it was also anchored in, we believe in the script and the story and the filmmaker. So we're going to be guided by that, and then just help, nudge the whole thing towards the strongest place,
Yeah. Well, how did you choose? I mean, the fact that you had some, like you say, quite a few offers on the table, not necessarily on the table, because they're not necessarily offers, they're sales agents. So were they coming with money? I take it probably not, but they were offering pre-sales perhaps. Talk us through that side of it, and how did you choose?
Sadly, our cast, because even though Jamie's done incredible films like Avatar and School for Good and Evil and The Forgotten Battle and stuff, pre-sales were too tricky because he's still fairly unknown in terms of a market, and as we all know, the painful thing is there's like 5-10 people that and they can't agree on who they are. It's just so boring.
It's so boring. Yeah.
It's so dull. And you're like, the not moving the needle thing is my least favorite expression in this.
It's horrible. It's so unfair on actors as well, isn't it? Oh, well, they don't move the needle.
It's
exactly.
Because they do move the needle. It's
That's
just
the thing.
Nobody seems to back how much the needle will move or put their reputation on the line for it.
But excited as well, because I think one of the big things Ken and I talk about is how much young talent is overlooked. We've just started casting our new film, and it's been announced Bella Ramsey's in it, and Louis Partridge and Ruby Stokes, and you sort of look at it and you go well, they don't not have value. They're incredible, superstars. And it's and it's just mental to me that for a long time this industry sort of turned a total blind eye to people under 30, and you're how also look at what Bella's doing now. In 10 years they're going to be even bigger. So we knew
and the body of their work as well, and the range, it's not like they've stayed in one particular place, line, track, genre. It's quite a wide spread, but I think we try to just take control of that though, really, and kind of empower ourselves by designing a finance plan that didn't rely on pre-sales. If people say it's impossible, I mean, that's like a red rag to a bull to the two of us. But, because we're both sort of very kind of entrepreneurial focused in how do you get anything done. But okay, if that's what the market says, then we're not going to change the juggernaut tanker of the market. But how are we still going to make our film? Because, I say regularly to people, we're in the business of making films, not talking about making films. We have to actually go out and make them, right? That's the reality of the bread and butter of it. So we just kind of took that power away from people to say, okay, you can, what ingredients have you got? What does that equate to? And I mean, one of the sales offers did have money attached to it. It did have a small equity.
Okay.
But I won't say who it was or whether we went with them or whether we didn't, but it was, they were all, it was such a hard decision actually, because, I'm really pleased we went with independent. I think we've all made a great movie together. But I think, we had such great other options too. It was just almost flipping a coin, and it almost sounds so disrespectful in one sense, but I want to just kind of acknowledge how good our other options appeared as well. And it was just extremely hard. Sometimes they're mechanical decisions you make making a film, and this was a real long, hard thinker. What do we, it was extremely difficult.
Well, I think it's really difficult with sales agents anyway, because you always have the friendly, nice conversations up front. And then it's depending on how your deal's structured, how much are they going to do on the film? Are they just going to sell the first sort of 5 territories, and then if it doesn't sort of blow up, then they've got the next film to do the same, and you're never going to get past your expenses cap. Are they going to account fairly? I mean, these are things that like countless filmmakers sort of have to go through. But I mean, what really interested me about that conversation you just sort of mentioned on your new film is some of the cast you were sort of talking about. I feel like it's such a strange misnomer with the TV world, because I'm constantly hearing that, oh, TV casts don't have any value, but they're also like, the sort of mid-budget films, the kind of actors that used to work in those are now doing the high-end HBO shows, the FX shows, the Netflix shows. Then they're the next generation of top-tier entertainment. And to me, that screams like that. If you've got 3 or 4 of these people in your film, that should be like really valuable, and someone should be able to sell that. But there doesn't seem to have caught up with the investment sales world in that sort of department.
You see, it does. You're right. It does seem so kind of just out of kilter a little bit. We've got, when we made the announcement pre-Cannes about Sunny Dancer, I think we got 12 million social media eyeballs on the,
Wow.
the just on the Instagrams of, the young people that are in the movie.
Wow.
Because they have that sort of, I call it direct to pocket, right? They have that direct to pocket reach to their fan base, who tend to be extremely loyal. But what seems to be the conversation amongst lots of movies, not just the ones we're talking about here, but when you're speaking to friends or putting other things together, the downstream distributor in the territory in Italy or wherever just can't justify to themselves what they're going to pay for a movie that's coming in 2 years. It seems like that takes a decade to change downstream. So that all just keeps coming back up the kind of timeline, and you get to the market and people are like, who's that? No, they don't add value. And, Sunny Dancer's greenlit. So like we're in a great position. People do see value in that cast, but there are other names you hear which you think like, of course they have value, but you just can't put it together from a territory by territory deal. And it just seems totally out of whack with, especially George is like the crystal ball guy. And he's like, FYI, in a year, this person's going to pop. And like, oh, maybe they're like 18 months, 2 years for them, but they're going to pop, And he's got a pretty good hit rate. So
that thing though, of Ken and I said to Ken very early on, like, because we knew that was coming with young cast and stuff. We knew it was going to be like, oh yeah, but like, and you just have to it's all about positioning. And I think it's all about going into those rooms and going, you're wrong. Like they do have value. And how can you say The Last of Us and, something like 9 million followers doesn't, And it's going like, I think it's an education in some ways to these distributors going, look, you might not know them, but go and ask your kids. You go in there and say like, let's ask who your kids know. Do they know Louis, or do they know like some actor in their 50s who, might have more theatrical, and chances are they're going to say Louis. And I think that side of the industry has been, needs to sort of catch up big time, because it's been for so long, only a certain amount of names, and hence many films don't get made because you can't get those names because they're too expensive. And that's why TV's been so important, and sort of like there isn't enough films being made anymore. And, that is partly because, talent is overlooked, and whereas TV usually have your budgets and stuff, but I think it's about like positioning and education around what they're up to. And sort of as we start to understand, like you look at Saltburn and you look at what happened there, and it goes, well, yes, maybe that would have happened with like 5 older actors, but actually that was because all these young actors have buzz and have all these people that will turn up to the cinema. Because pre-COVID, it was a lot more older people would go to the cinema. Now it's a lot of the younger people. And so I think for Ken and I, a lot of our chats were about sort of going, you guys are wrong. Like, like these guys are brilliant. Like,
do you actually say it like that?
You're wrong.
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, but the reality is like we were talking about earlier of, backing something that you think, or someone that you think can be exceptional. And you go, this is the right piece for this movie, basically get on board. At the end of the day, it's always quite an interesting dynamic, as you both know. But you're the producers of the project, right? So ultimately, you're the CEOs of the company. You're the captains of the ship. Like, insert analogy here, or bad like joke from Dom, like whatever you want to do, whatever you want.
Whoa.
The captains of the Lido swim team, right? So we're anyway, I think we have to be confident in who we think is right for the role and talented enough to do it, you know.
But it's so important, and that confidence, you can even hear it in you two now. And I imagine if you were saying that before you'd made a film, you know, now you've got a film that I imagine people love. At the time, people loved the script, which is great. Just quickly, with Sunny Dancer, did you send Bella and the rest of the cast Black Dog to show them? Because obviously it hasn't come out yet.
Yeah, so it was a real, you know, we obviously Sunny Dancers with Embankment Films, and, you know, we were very lucky that they sort of totally understood what we were doing, and they sort of, you know, back every sort of, like, it feels really exciting because when Ken and I get on a call and we go, hey Bella, they're like, hell yes, you know what I mean? It feels like
That's nice.
a really refreshing, you know, company to work with. And so in terms of, when we were making those offers, I wrote Sunny Dancer with Ruby in mind to play her role, and I've got to be careful because not all the roles are announced, but because we had worked together on Black Dog.
And she's amazing in Black Dog. She's fabulous.
Ruby is one of the most exceptional actors, and I think like everything she touches seems to just be gold. And she can come in for a day, and she knows, you know, on Black Dog she wasn't a lead, you know, but she was a great supporting role, and she came in, did exactly that, and she just elevated the whole project. And it's a much bigger role in Sunny Dancer, and it's much more exciting because we'll work together for a long time. So I wrote that role with her in mind, and she sort of knew what I was like to work with. And so when we made that offer, she sort of said yes very, very quickly. And because we just had that like want to get back on set together. And then Louis I've known for a long time. So my dad isn't in the industry at all, and neither is Louis's dad. But they met at a pub in Tooting when I was about 18 and Louis was a bit younger. And they were like, my son's an actor. And they were like, oh, my son's an actor. They should meet. And this was before Louis did Enola Holmes and all that. And we ended up meeting, and for a long time Louis has been a big supporter of my work. He sort of watched all the shorts and, you know, seen sort of me grow up as a filmmaker, and I've watched Louis's career go stratospheric too. They were all at the premiere of Black Dog, you know, when we did LFF.
Perfect for them to go. Yeah, and of course I'll do your next film. Yeah.
So Louis actually came to the premiere of Black Dog, so that's where he saw it. And he had got the script during that time as well. So that was very exciting for us. And Ivy, Bella's role in Sunny Dance, was the only role I think really in the film that I didn't ever have anyone in mind for. And that was really weird for me as a writer, because a lot of the time, you know, I was writing Louis's role with sort of like Louis in mind, and you sort of like, you know, how Louis talks, you know, how he, you know, how he would do that role, how you think you want him to push him to do that role. And Ivy wasn't that. And I have to give, you know, credit to my casting directors, Daniel Edwards and Lucy Allen, who did Heartstopper, who suggested Bella really early on to me. And I was just like, absolutely, but will they do it? And they were like, who knows, but let's send the offer. And I think that's our like sort of...
So let's talk about the offer. Like, what is the offer? Does it come from Ken and the casting director? Have you done a director's letter? Like, what was the process of...
So the offer for Bella, you know, was basically, because I didn't know Bella, you know, obviously I knew their work and stuff, but I didn't know them. But Daniel Edwards and Lucy, the cast directors, sent the script, sent Black Dog, sent a letter from me, a very gushy letter.
How long was the letter? Sorry, I know
it's something we've talked about on the podcast before. How long these letters
Ken doesn't let me write more than a page, which I find so.
Okay.
So
I got told off for that as well. Like, it has to be a page.
I end up making the font small, and Ken hasn't realised.
Actually, when I opened it, I had to adjust the margins to fit it back onto one page. So I helped you out. I've got your back. Don't you worry.
Bit of a margin call.
Love it.
My editor is Caitlin Spiller, and she used to work with Jill Burcock and Thelma Schoonmaker, so she's sort of like one of the most exceptional collaborators of mine, and I sort of won't do
nice.
For her. And Caitlin's very honest about it. Caitlin, my mum had cancer growing up, that's why I sort of wanted to write Sunny Dancer, and Caitlin had cancer when she was young too. And we were in the edit of Black Dog, and I was going, I want my next film to be about cancer. I want it to be like, but I don't know how. And I've sort of like, I was like so sick of seeing cancer films where everyone was in hospital gowns and sort of like having these long drawn out like sequences of them being ill. And I was like, this is not right. Like, you know, I was an ambassador for Teenage Cancer Trust. So I'd been on these wards and met all these young people who like rock around being like, yeah, I used to get my IV drip and race down the corridor, or I had my first snog on the ward. And you're like, wait, what? Where are those?
Yeah, that's cool.
Caitlin revealed to me that she had cancer as a young person. And that was really sort of like mind-blowing, because I'd known her for a long time at that point. And I remember she's very like, she does stand up, and she was very much like well, I'm not going to open with that, am I? And I just remember, and she told me about how she used to go on these summer camps for kids affected by cancer, and straight away I knew that was the film. So it was a very roundabout way of saying that was sort of like, that was in the letter too. And then Caitlin and I made a sizzle reel for the film. So rather than shooting a proof of concept, because I don't necessarily always think that a mentor of mine.
I hate them. I absolutely hate the idea. I don't think you can get into the, there's so many HODs and months of thought and different people that go in. I know Giles, you're quite good at them and you've got a different perspective on this, but like, I find it like takes such a huge monumental amount of focus and people to make a film that proof of concept never does it justice.
Well, unless you've got money or the right idea and shooting at a studio. Yes, I think proof of concepts are very difficult to make it look like this is your final film, and people judge you on that. And I totally agree why people think we shouldn't do it.
I think,
but also, bizarrely, it's execution dependent, isn't it?
You're right.
But it is like if you absolutely smash it, then people are queuing up for it. And if it's just like 90% of the way there, people think, "Oh, we thought it was going to be here," and now So, I mean, all power to you, Giles. If you can nail them. But I do think they're hard to nail, for sure.
I do think they should exist as their own piece of work too, and I think that's where you get the exciting ones. But for us, we decided quite early on, exactly like you said, we didn't have the money to sort of shoot it properly and stuff. So I decided, take bits from all other films and put it to music and sort of show people what I wanted this film to feel like. And as an actor, like, that's the first thing you click on. Like, no one's got time to read a script first. You watch the sizzle reel, you then look through the pitch deck because you go, and then you might read the script if you get that far.
So true.
You've got to make sure that's really strong. If you're going to, and lucky for us, like we sort of like spent a lot of time making it and put some banging tracks on it and sort of made this thing that just showed the tone and all that stuff. So every actor had been sent that as well as their offers. So by that point, Bella had seen the sizzle, watched Black Dog, seen a pitch deck and read the script and read my letter. And then we got on a call, a Zoom. And it was really funny because I've been on them as an actor and you're really nervous to meet the director. You're terrifying. But then for this was like 20 times worse. Like, it was like, I was so scared. I was like, is Bella going to like it? Are they not? And then they got on the call and it was, I sort of remember sheepishly kind of going like, so do you like it? Like, and they were like, I love it. And I was like, do you want to do it? And they were like, yes. And then we just talked about everything other than the film. And it was that moment where you go like, oh, phew, okay. Like,
oh, phew, yeah, exactly. That first date moment.
How the offer shaped. And they said they would love to be a part of the film. And that was, one of the best moments ever. And we don't really celebrate wins enough, I think.
Agreed.
That was a huge win for the film.
I love that.
George and I do talk about that sometimes, like, how to just celebrate the small wins. It's good to have, if you had a victory this week, it can be like, are you closer
to a dinner date
to the bigger picture goal? And I know I personally am not great at always celebrating those. So, I think we've all got to try harder to do those.
I agree, Ken. We do. It's true that we work so hard in this industry to try and get anything made. So why aren't we celebrating those little wins sometimes and actually just go, yeah, do you know what? I've achieved something. And speaking of which, let's bring it back to Black Dog a bit, because you have achieved something incredible. So we're jumping it right back. You're at that point. You've got sales agent now with independent. You're moving forward. You got pretty much, you're getting cast, or you're certainly talking about cast. When did Sharp House come on board? When did David Parfit come on board? It's sort of like, what cemented it all together to say this project's green lit?
Ken, shall I do David and you do Sharp?
Yeah.
So David was an interesting one because we knew we wanted like an industry like pillar of support. Like,
annoyingly wonderful together.
Yes. Aren't they? It's so cute.
Why can't we be a couple like this, Giles?
Yeah, no. You need a tool belt, Tom.
Because when Ken and I we celebrate, we go to Bar Simmons. That's the bit we missed out, and we get tea breaks. That's where that's what
we do occasionally. When I'm in town, we do have a little face-to-face
cuddle,
little celebration.
Okay.
Celebrate those wins and
celebrate the wins.
Have a challenging Wednesday morning. Like.
If you're not like laughing once a day in this industry, you're in the wrong industry. Like, we're not doing brains. You know what I mean? Like, it's so, if you're not having a laugh while you make stuff, then don't do it,
Yes,
but we ended up knowing we wanted an industry like pillar, because we didn't have BFI Film 4, BBC Films behind us, we sort of went, right, well, how can we get that like stamp? That sort of, these aren't just a 20, I was 22 when I directed it. So like not just a 22-year-old and Ken running around.
I was only 35, so I was fine.
Running around. And
Sure.
we sent David the script, and David read it and loved it and was like, well, I want to be a part of this. What do you guys?
Amazing. Love that. What do you mean you just sent him the script? It's the final thing our filmmakers out there want to know. How do you get someone like him on board? Just sending a script again. Were you on hunter.io going, hey, let's see, David.
I mean, genuinely not a million miles away. It actually went into Cleone, who is sort of his associate producer a lot of the time. Cleone read it first and then badgered David, being like, you have to read it, and then did read it. And then,
I think that's a reality of some of the, those high profile or people that are extremely well respected, is that it might take a step prior to them to then get it to them. But who's the ally on the inside? Who's the friend, basically? And Cleone batted for us ultimately, didn't she, George?
You have to just shoot your shot with that stuff. Like the amount of cold emails I've sent and people reply, you just got to if you don't try, you won't get it. And I think so. David read it, and then we got on a Zoom with him at first because it was sort of bit COVID-y and sort of that. It's quicker to get rid of someone on Zoom, isn't it? Like you can just go, all right, bye guys, thanks.
Yeah, it's true.
And David was like, what do you want? Like, how can I help? Like, what do you need? And
what do you want?
I sheepishly went,
it was almost too good though. He was like, what do you need? Because you seem as if it's all pretty well set up, so I'm not sure how I can help. And we're like, no, you can totally help. You can totally help. Come and be in our gang.
It's a conditioning thing again of going like Ken and I were like, absolutely going, yeah, we're nearly there. Like absolutely trying to pull it together. And I sheepishly sort of went, David, would you exec produce it on the call? And I think he sort of went, yeah. And it was really like that. And it was sort
if you don't ask,
it felt like a dream because it was sort of going like, we didn't need much from David. It wasn't like, we needed like countless calls and stuff, but where we needed support, he just came through massively. And so it wasn't going to be a huge amount of hours for him. And I think he knew that. But also I think he got on the Zoom to check that Ken and I were legit, because he sort of doesn't want to he's got an incredible track record of incredible Oscar winning films, and then Black Dog's his like rogue exec produced like little indie. But I think he just believed in us and believed in what we were trying to do and knew he could help us. And he lives in Brixton, so also the South London side of things really helped.
Yeah.
And how did he help?
Yes,
David helped in honestly, when I say in so many ways. I mean, obviously David's name really helped in lots of emails. That was really useful to be able to go, we're exec by this huge industry titan. But also Ken, to the point of even when we were booking crew, I remember calling him going do you know a location manager? You know what I mean? It was a real mix. And David was so hands-on. He was like, I'll come down to London. What do you guys need? I'll be there. I'll make sure the catering is that, he was literally so hands-on and so up for anything we needed, and a bouncing board for Ken to have a more experienced producer and for me as well to have someone like that who just knows how to deal with those high pressure situations.
He's seen it all before, and the whole team at Trademark, Liz and Cleone and everyone. They so just having that person to pick up the phone to, and in many ways, sometimes you're actually phoning with things, or how I sometimes end up operating is that you've kind of already made the decision, or you're just sense checking it. You're just getting that one piece of, so here's what I'm thinking, but how does it sound to you? And as I think you're right, George. I mean, he met us and hopefully was impressed and all those wonderful things. But I think he knew that he wasn't going to have to be leading the blind through this crazy journey of making a film. But actually, we were in quite good shape. But he could add value, and he could see. And again, he loved the script. I got into special effects. Actually via drama school. I did a technical and production degree at drama school, and then discovered pyrotechnics, and then blah blah blah, whatever. Toured with rock and roll stuff and all that kind of stuff. On the way,
Muppets Most Wanted as well.
Muppets. I blew up a telephone box on Muppets Most Wanted. You are correct, Giles. Yes. But yeah, I did pyro for Coldplay and Prince and stuff on their European tours and stuff like this. Anyway, there was I've got a bit of theatrical experience. George comes from a theatrical world, and David comes from a theatrical world, like, theater world.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think there was a kind of just below the surface synergy as well that was,
or Kenergy.
Or Kenergy. I am Knuff, thank you. Yes, I do have them. But it's so it just felt like it fitted, I think, and he read it and connected with it, I guess, like everybody else.
Well, the Sharp House as well, the same, I imagine. Ian, obviously, you know.
Yeah.
But, yeah, talk us through that as well.
I didn't know Ian before, but Ken, you jump in because you did.
Yeah. I've known Ian for, God, I don't know how long I've known Ian for, but a while. And, we're good pals and we talk about all sorts of stuff outside the film business and, things like that. So it just, we wanted to round out the producing team. Jamie's a producer on the project too, but, George goes into director mode. Jamie goes into actor mode. I remain in producer mode, but where's the support? David's this amazing exec role, but who's kind of a bit more in the trenches maybe. And so I was chatting to Ian about it. And again, we just shared the script and said, what do you think about this? It's tiny, but it's beautiful. I believe this filmmaker. And it sounds like we're just a broken record, but the script connected. Ian and I think met for a coffee or met for a beer or something and just had a chat about it. And then Ian met George and stuff. And he was just like, great. We love great stuff. Why wouldn't we want to be a part of something we think has the potential? And again, it's just that nobody really knows, do we? But we think it should go in a certain way based on the elements we've got together. And Ian was like, great, I'd love to be involved as a producer, actually working with you guys, standing alongside you. And, Sharp House can help that too. And that's really how it kind of came together with Ian. So it was kind of like Ian and I guess, had spoken for years about trying to do something together or what's the right fit or shared stuff or pass things to each other. And it just we never quite found one until Black Dog. So yeah, it's been great to work with him too.
Well, let's talk about the finance then side of it. Do you want to say how much the budget was, or at this stage probably not? It's up to you. Either way, I'm interested to know how you just pieced your finance together.
We're quite open that it was £500,000 quid. It wasn't huge money or anything like that. It was, obviously that sounds like a lot of money but in film worlds that's not. And particularly with what we were trying to do and the ambition
for a debut movie, though, it's nice. It's a nice amount of money, £500,000, UK pounds to go make a movie. It's not bad. It's it's doable.
And it's not bad. It's definitely not the bigger. I know a lot of the other reviews when we were at LFF were 4, 5, 6, 10 times, and that's always scary. But it was, it was definitely. It meant that we, people weren't turning up for free, which is always helpful.
Which is so important, paying your
And
crew.
I think that was almost the defining factor of it because, obviously I've listened to the podcast too, and lots of people make stuff for much less.
How many episodes?
400 and something.
Yeah, well done.
But people have made stuff obviously for much less. But Bickers cost what Bickers cost to, put a car on a low loader and do a road trip. Renting a hotel.
Bickers are bloody expensive.
We actually got
the only person that's ever got a discount out of Bickers is George Jaques.
Wow.
Well
I'm telling you. Wow. I'm telling you.
Did you bicker with them?
No, I actually wore their cap the whole time on set.
Did you? Yeah, and all the photos, every single one.
There are.
Instagram in it.
No,
there are some approved press stills of George wearing a Bickers cap.
They actually did our short with us as well back in the day.
Oh, that's nice.
Supported all the way through, which has been amazing.
Yeah, but I think it's the logistics of shooting in London is expensive. On the roads in London with TfL and Red
Super
Routes,
expensive, yeah,
and police and all that stuff. And again, people can shoot a movie on anything, but I guess we were bringing together a crew that wanted to try to have the best gear, the best I'm all about how do you help people? How do you help unlock people's potential? So if you're coming on set as the DP or the first AC or the sound records or the boom op or the, background costume, wrangler or whatever, how do I as a producer and we as a production help you deliver your best? And so it was just, again, that entrepreneurial kind of, scramble's not quite the right word, but like hustle. Where can we get some money from? George had some people that had backed the theatre plays and had a return on their investment because they were successful theatre plays.
Congrats.
I had some people that had come into movies previously too. And, and then you kind of find some new people along the way. If you're just, the $1 million question, where'd you find these people? Like, who knows?
Who knows?
They just come into your orbit, don't they? And you have a conversation and their money comes in and then they change their mind and they want their money back. And then you convince them to keep it in and, and things just change. But
we also raised that money, that budget 3 times, Ken, or something crazy. Like, you get close and then you're like, wow. And then it goes away and you're like, wait, what? It was just here. And I remember it being like that weird thing of going, how? We were just one call. We had it all. And then it's not. And that's the nature of it.
It is the nature of it.
And it's just trying to piece it together. So it's really, truly patchwork financing. We managed to, one of the investors cash flowed the tax credit, which is just an absolute, you're just, on a movie of our size, you're saving real money. If it gets big, then there's always financing fees and all that sort of stuff. But on a movie that was on fumes anyway, that's what we had to do. And we tried to be fair. People got paid equity, and we had HOD pay parity because, I think the danger is when you have more than just nothing, is that everybody wants more, and rightly so. And the desire is to give everybody more. But there comes a point where, like, at 500 grand, we're never going to compete with the 10 million pound movie or the massive TV show. So you have to save yourself sometimes of, like, we can't convince this person with money because we don't have enough. But how do we make a respectful offer in the fair market value of their services as either as crew or HOD or as cast, and say, hey, look, I'm trying not to insult you but this is what I've got. But here's why you should be a part of it. Here's how long it will take. We'd love you to come on this journey. And sometimes people say no, and that's okay. Like, no is an appropriate answer. It's just maybe not the one we want, but this is our stall. We've set it out. Would you love to come on this journey with us? Because we'd love you to. Over to you. Take a couple of days. And it's just trying to be that.
How do you
upfront?
How do you sort of figure out? Because we talk about the the pay rate, which is one thing. Getting people to agree to a pay rate is fine. I think one of the trickier bits is like working out the expenses and the mileage, and people often agree to things, and you're very clear up front. Okay, look, we can't afford to be paying mileage on this, and then the invoices come in, and people are like, okay, well, we had a good time on the shoot, we're not getting paid very much. All of those expenses add up dramatically. I mean, is that something that you had to really have honest conversations up front and say, like, look, expenses wise, we really have to be really strict on this and this and this, because that can just blow up and almost double people's sort of daily rates when they sort of add up.
Yeah, and it was just about being honest and transparent up front, putting in the deal memo and being very like, look, this will be a travel day, but we're going to pay a half rate travel day, and we'll cover the fuel. It was kind of, people were quite generous with us in that sense that they understood it, and they were happy that we filled the tank rather than paid the mileage, if that makes sense, which is massive saving, for a production, obviously the wear and tear, the vehicle, et cetera, but it was like, look, we're trying to give you something. Can you help us and meet us somewhere in the middle? And then helpfully, I don't think any liter of fuel was less than £2 on the movie. We were just in that absolute sweet spot where everything was going crazy on the fuel prices. And then we were living like in a service station for about 2 weeks in Yorkshire. And so we were paying premium motorway fuel prices at a premium fuel time in the economy, and it was like, oh my, like, help me. But
it's worth also mentioning as well. Like, we shot Black Dog at the busiest time in the industry. Like, it was that TV boom. It was
it was the boom.
It was, because I just finished a town called Malice, and we got back. I got off the plane, and I remember it being like, crew that you thought were 100% going to be in the job, like, would call you and go, look, I've been offered 4 times the rate to jump onto this Netflix show, and you'd be like, go
for 9 months.
I remember.
4 times is good.
You've just got to go do it. You know what I mean? And you're like, you can't. As a director, it's heartbreaking, but also you go, they've got mortgages, they've got young kids that they've got. Like, no, we'll work it out.
Yeah, we do the same. Yeah, 3 Day Millionaire was the same. We shot pretty much at the same time, I think, and it was this boom time in independent film, which is so the opposite of kind of now, really. It's kind of fascinating. It's just everyone everywhere was filming. You couldn't get certain crew for love nor money. It didn't matter how much you paid sometimes. Netflix had more money and they were paying people, literally 9 months retainer.
That's the toe-to-toe that you just can't do. And I remember being on a train and someone that worked with us on the shorts, and we was part of the team that we think we'll work with them again in the future, actually. But it was, hey, Ken, look, I've been waiting for this chance to step up for 4.5 years. I can't do Black Dog. Is that a problem? And actually, you just have to be really positive for that person and excited for them. Ultimately, they'd phone me telling me what they were going to do anyway. So, I was so pleased for them because they deserved that opportunity and they were getting it. And we were the casualty, but actually they had a really positive moment in their career at that point. So you just have to be positive for that person.
We were amazing. They'd always try and be like, look, we'll find someone. We'd be like, no, just go. Because I remember like that person who Ken's talking about, went off and did Barbie. And it was like, and we found those replacements and that's why it was tough. And
you found Ken.
Yeah. Wow.
You're not getting a ding for that, I'm afraid.
No, he doesn't deserve it.
I do my own ding. Ding.
We got so lucky too, because it was like our grip, Neil, I had worked with when I was 20, I think. So he was on that Jude Law show I did called The Third Day. And I called Neil and I was like, look, Neil, we need a grip. And Neil was like, all right, I'll do it. And I was like, wait, what? I thought you were going to give me and he's like, no, I'll do it. And also George, you're not paying me. And he was like, I've just worked for a long time. I don't need it. And he was like, and that was it. And it was sort of, to have that level of support, is so rare. And he came to the premiere and, he's, one of our closest collaborators, and he brought some of his team on the days he couldn't do. And they did get paid. And but we just made it work. And, without the support of people like Neil, there's no way that budget would have got, we would have cardboards on the side of a motorway.
There's no chance.
Well, this is it. I genuinely believe we made a £2 or £3 million movie for 500 grand, right?
Yeah.
The Neil Blakesleys of the world are just the most, he's an incredible human being. And he just so happens to be a phenomenal grip. It's kind of, his generosity in saying, actually, I don't need your kind of token gesture money.
I don't want your petty money.
but it really
worth it for my bank
money
account.
Got spent somewhere else. Genuinely went somewhere else that was needed. Those margin calls of just can actually just put it there.
But you know what it is? It's because you guys are good guys, right? These people wouldn't have come and done this film for you for just less money than they could get somewhere else. So these girls, they just wouldn't have done any of that if it wasn't for you guys. It's just how it is. It's true. People come and do it not only because maybe they love the script, but they're not going to spend their time and their energy going off and doing a road trip movie with people they don't like or trust or respect. And that comes down from a good working relationship and being good on set, being a nice person, being around, being professional, and also showing people what you can do. And that's really important. One of the most important things. It's what gets you the team.
Lots of kind words. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, it's true. It's
not
true.
many directed to me in my jokes, but at least these two are getting a good compliment.
You've had 8 dings.
Yeah. Have you been counting, Justin?
I don't know, actually. I guessed it was about 8. It feels about 8.
I like
it. About 8. Well, let's bring you back to the directing side of that then for you, George, in terms of, doing the feature, and how different was it for you from doing shorts? How did that overall arc? Because sometimes you've now got to think about the bigger journey and the story. And I saw you holding the camera a couple of times. Were you doing that in the car? Because there was a lot of stuff in the car. How did you direct that? What was your process, your thoughts behind it all? Tell us about your technique as a director.
Yeah, so first of all, that was all just press photos. I never touched the camera, but I just whacked up my shoulder from behind the scenes. No,
Come on,
Well done.
unions, come on.
Yeah, unions. You can't pick it up. You're not allowed. You look like you knew how to hold it, to be fair.
No, I'm joking. I did. I think for me, the step up from the short was sort of the stamina it takes. Really.
Yeah,
Like
stamina.
I talk about like I think a lot of young directors make the mistake of going like, this is my style. This is like what I do. I do this style, and I've always found that really weird because I sort of go, well, every film you do is different, and every film I just try and tell that story, and every scene, it's like, what's the best way to tell that scene? And you might watch all my work now and go, hey, that's what George does each time, or there's a style, but like, that's not what I lead with. And I think that's really important. And so when we were doing Black Dog, I sort of went, well, all my shorts have been really actor-led and character-heavy and sort of performance-led. And so I felt quite safe in that world. I knew I could like work with actors, and I've worked with tricky actors as an actor. I've worked with really easy actors. I've sort of like seen a real big spectrum. So I also know how to make an actor feel part of the team and the firm. And like what that then means is you have like these people that are on your side. And that's really important as a director. So, every day, whenever we had a new actor, I wrote them a handwritten like good luck card, and like you bring them in and you sort of like make them feel special, but you also give them, I do all my work, my character work offset, because a lot of the time it's really, personal, and we talk about the character, why I wrote it, and all of that stuff. We make playlists because it then means when they turn up to day one, they know what they're doing. And I then bring them in the morning before they're in costume and makeup, and I go, right, this is what I'm going to do. This is the rough scene. This is what I want. What do you want? And we walk through it, and then I send them away and we light it, because I find a lot of the time if you're an actor and you walk on set and it's all lit and they're like, you've got to walk through that door, you go, oh, okay, I did, and I'm just one of those actors that cracks on and is like, yeah, fine, easy. But some people aren't that, and that's totally fine too. So I sort of knew that was my process in some ways, but I think a lot of Black Dog was me growing up as a 22-year-old being like, well, what is my process? What do I need? How do I sort of direct? So it was really actor led. And I rehearse as well. I think that's really important. I think not enough films do that. I think it's important to have time as a director to see how your actors take notes, to see what works, to try things where it doesn't matter. Because like every time we turn over that camera, it does matter. I think that's a really freeing environment, and one that I'll always do.
So when you are rehearsing, are we talking about running through the exact scenes? Are we talking about sort of made up scenarios sort of in the character? Like, how much do you like to rehearse versus, over rehearsing, under rehearsing, those kind of questions?
I sort of like try and hit a point that we never get past 75% in a rehearsal room, because otherwise you start to try and recreate something that was in the rehearsal room on set. That's hugely problematic. Because you don't want them thinking, oh, do you remember on that day when I did that amazing like spin? You're like, whoa, let's leave that out. So I start rehearsals by always doing a read through, and then sort of like immediately having a lot of fun and like finding like weird things to do and like things to watch. And I use a lot of music in rehearsals, and hence there's a moment in the film where Keenan's singing River by Leon Bridges, and that wasn't in the script. That was something we found in rehearsals. I didn't know Keenan could sing, and he sort of just started like blaring out River, and I was like, what the hell is going on? And I'd filmed it, and then I sent it to Ken that night, and I was like, Ken, we're gonna have to get the rights to River. And we get into the script.
Ken's face right now, everyone.
And yeah.
But we did because it was important to the creative, right? It was such a challenge, but that amazing organic bit of just taking it up, dialing it up to 11 from the rehearsal room, and then gave the production a bit of time to go and sort of figure it out.
And it was important, and I think for me it was a moment in the film where they bond, and it was a moment of like connection. So I'll use the script a lot, and we'll sort of like have big anchor scenes that I want to look at. And one of the limitations on Black Dog was the time. I had 4 weeks to direct it, and I had 1 week to shoot all the car scenes. And obviously your film is 50% in the car.
Wow. Yeah.
So it was hard, and I knew I wanted to do certain camera angles on certain scenes. So for example, there was moments I wanted to be in the car feeling that tension. There was moments I wanted to be through the windscreen, on the back, and I sort of had moments marked out in the script. So I made the actors rehearse it, that they could go from scene to scene, not in order, and we could jump around. And that was because I wanted that camera angle for those 3 scenes. So rather than like going like, hey, here's 3 scenes blocked together in the script, it was like, here's 3 times I want to use a handheld camera inside doing French overs essentially in the back seat, and so it meant that Jamie and Keenan could go bang to bang to bang, and we'd do these big loops, and I'd be like, right, let's go to the next one, and they could just do it. And that
Amazing.
was incredible. But we wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't had that rehearsal time, because that's a really hard skill. And you know,
it's like doing a triathlete.
Really,
triathlon.
It was really tough.
And testament to them as well for just embracing that way of trying to deliver that, trying to get what George has in his head, trying to get that on the screen. And to Neil Blakesley, who then is making sure he's there because he's got the right grip, rigging certification to sort of do that stuff, and keep us safe on active motorways and stuff. Like these weren't closed studio condition stuff. This was within the limit of the law, but real cars and stuff going past, and real safety stuff going on. And then we're trying to protect George and the cast and make sure they can stay in the headspace of jumping between those scenes.
I found that really hard, because that's a moment as a director where you're not putting what you'd want to do first. It's like, if I had more money, more time, I would have shot it in order. I would have shot it like totally different, and that's a really tough thing, because it's against everything. But you go like, well, what's the option here? It's I don't make the film, or I cut that scene. And I think that was certainly something that was a step up from the short, was like the shorts was sort of going, if I drop a scene, that scene's not making it into the film. There's no time we don't have the money for overtime. We don't have like the money for pickup shoots. Like, that was not an option. And that makes you work really hard as a director, because, I had this stupidly large folder, but essentially, like, for every page of the script, I'd gone like, well, what's the minimum amount of coverage I need? And that was it. I had that. And some days I used it, and some days I kept it in the car, and I didn't use it, because you sort of go, right, if I'm having a wobble one day, I need it. If I'm not, great, let's just throw that away, and let's just like see what's in front of us. And I think even if you have that, that folder or that shot list or whatever it is, your process, I think your job as a director is still to react to what's in front of you. The moment you're not is the moment it's dead. The moment you will see it in camera that it's not alive. That was really important. And I realized early on with the camera work, with the Arris, we shot on 2 Arri mini LFs.
Okay.
Lenses were huge, that I was playing around with when I went into Arri and had a look and stuff. And we then wanted to shoot on rehouse vintage Nikon lenses, because they were that big. And it had all the amazing
holding of his fingers, which is probably around 2 inches.
Yeah, probably. And it was sort of like, you were so going to ding there, but
Dom was dying to ding there. Ding my 2 inches.
Well, Giles just seemed to know that like measurement very accurately.
I think it was, those animal foot lenses are huge, and they have such character and so much beauty, but that wasn't an option, because in a car, like, where we can't go beyond the wing mirrors, I have to be able to move around, and we sort of like, we had to get in the back. So these lenses were sort of an amazing solution for that, where we had these amazing flares and interesting lenses, but it was way smaller, so we could kind of get that different angle, and it felt like every car scene was fresh, because we'd slightly move it slightly differently. But they were a nightmare for the poor focus pillar, because we were shooting like pretty much wide open, and on LF on these, and not really doing camera rehearsals. We were sort of going straight into it, and it was pretty hard, but they kept up.
And if they were lucky, they got to be in the footwell on the back seat, and if they were really unlucky, they were miles away, and we're maybe just setting the focus
in the footwell,
for the best,
just being kicked.
That was sort of
metaphorically.
And then when I was on land, as it were, like when I was out that car, it was much more fun, if I'm being totally honest. It was.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, car stuff's hard, man.
Car stuff was tough, and it was the hottest week in the UK that had been in a long time, and car lights were falling down on actors because it was so hot, and it was just.
Wow.
Keenan did a woolen jumper. I mean, it was just
Carmageddon.
And they can't have aircon and stuff like that. It was just really, really brutal. But then when I'm sort of when we were doing the scenes, for example, with Ruby. In the first, I always sort of like rehearse it, and then I want to get it as scripted, and that's important for me. I mainly use one camera, because I think like I like that. I like the process of using one camera if it's a 2-hander scene.
Agreed. Yeah.
I like taking my time with it and really getting the performance, then moving on. It's too much to focus on for me.
You're right. You end up sort of going, oh, look, there was a bit there. Oh, wait, I missed you miss bits. You miss the magic.
And it's not quick enough. It doesn't, unless it's a big scene, then I think there's a space for it. But with those little intimate scenes, take your time and shoot it, like, you know, with one camera, in my opinion. So something like that, we'd get the script on, and then we'd go, right, well, now let's play around with it and find different things. And I'd give them an idea, and I'm very clear as a director. Like, when I've made a mistake, I'll walk on set and I'll go, well, that was shit, and that was on me. You know what I mean? And it just means that an actor sort of can look at it and go, okay, right, well, we can just try things and we can get it wrong here. And the pressure sort of goes in some ways. So that was a big one for me. And really, yeah, it was about creating a supporting environment. It was about never letting an actor know that we were under mad time pressure and I had to shoot. You know, one day we did 42 camera setups, you know, and it was like, it was tough. But it was about, like, I never wanted that to be shown on screen, or never wanted an actor to realize that. And that was my job.
And I think that,
Good.
you know, George being that prepared with his director's folder, which, you know, I'm a massive fan of being prepared, being organized, and the director being prepared and being organized. So knowing that he knew what he wanted, you know, just the prep, seeing it from a purely producerial perspective, the amount of prep and energy that went into writing down exactly what he wanted, so that he always had his, you know, the guiding light of what he was trying to achieve, allows the whole production to try and rally around him. Because it's, you know, when things are going smoothly, great, like we're doing what we're trying to achieve. But actually, when we've all got to react to try and do something different, or economize, or get those 42 setups, at least everybody else kind of sees it coming, and we can try and put resources or energy into the right places at the right time. So, you know, from a purely producerial perspective, I'm such a big fan of a well-organized, well-prepared director. I mean, like, come on, if you're driving this production, help everybody out, right? You know, just try to communicate really clearly as much as you can. It's not always possible, but, you know,
it's important. And, you know, even on the new film at the moment, I spend time with actors at this early point, and I sort of go, right, well, what bag would your character take to camp? Because then that all of a sudden informs production design. And then, you know, our costume designers won loads of BAFTAs and stuff, and we've been chatting about, you know, this is on Sunny Dancer, about, like, right, well, which camper, because it's sort of set in a camp, like, who would iron their shirt, you know, before they go? Whose mum ironed their shirt?
Yeah.
Do they have a crease mark? Do they not? And I love that detail, because I sort of like, that's the bit that really gets me excited. And I think if you prep, everyone else can do their best work.
And it's building those characters again, from, like, when I've spoken to George about how he prepares as an actor, build the character, and then that informs the whole environment, and that helps inform all the HODs. I mean, it sounds so straightforward, but got the luxury of a little bit of time that some of those key cast are in place now. So those, you know, that development, that growth of the character can evolve, which is amazing.
You have to as well, because, like, when I did Serpent Queen, a TV show, it was 8 episodes, and I, like, you know, I aged through the show, and I had a diary throughout every episode, so I knew where I was mentally on each episode, because it wasn't the same director, you know, the whole way through. You
always jumping new people. Yep,
difficult. Crazy in that sense. And you know, I always say to actors that I work with as a director, I go, like, you will know this role better than I will by the time you get on set, and then it's yours. And then I'll keep you, you know, my job is like going between, you know, I know the guidelines, but I sort of let them play in that. And the moment they go out of that, I can sort of knock them back in, and then you know, you control it that way. But it has to be really fun and freeing, and sort of, and I think that's how you get the most exciting alive work.
What do you think you learnt going forward from Black Dog, especially? If you had, like, one takeaway of, like, going into the next movie, like, what might that be?
No, I said in an article earlier this week, it was like the film that nearly broke me, but also the film that made me. And I think that's so true. I think there's a lot of hard lessons Ken and I learned on this film, you know, and I think, like, the job for Ken and I now is not to let that jade us, you know, not to be like, have that little, like, grudge on our shoulder. It's to go, like, right, let that go. That happened on that film because of the budget level or because of whatever it was. That doesn't mean it's always going to happen. And I think that's something really important that we sort of all need to remember as filmmakers, to go, like, let's not become these twisted old people in 30 years that, like, have these horror stories. You know, it's, yes, that stuff happens, but it's important to shake that off. I think for me, one of the things that I've really, you know, have realized the value on is, you know, less so on set as much. Like, obviously on set, like, yes, it's incredibly hard and you learn all that stuff, but I think it's the stuff around set. It's the stuff that happens afterwards. I think, sadly in this industry, indie films are overlooked and are sort of forgotten about. And I think it's really tough to remain in focus and we've done a lot on Black Dog to remain like in the public eye and stuff like that, to the point of like we got 2 million views on our trailer very quickly and stuff like that. There's things you do there. And I think it's, for a long time in my career, I sort of thought after my debut, I wouldn't have to do that stuff. And I think you're always going to have to do it. And it's sort of, it's not like, I think that was one of the learning things, is like, for some reason, I thought like when you get American agents and managing stuff and the second feature and third feature, it's sort of like, all of a sudden they're in the ship and they're driving it. It's not, you're still driving it. They're just there too. And I think that was something I really learned, was like, you've just got to push people to get the best out of them. And if that means sending some naggy emails, it means that.
I think that's a good attitude. I mean, there's some of the biggest Oscar winners and people like that we've had on the podcast. The ones that we really like connect with are the ones that, whatever level they're at, they're still like thinking about everything possible. They're doing everything humanly available to them to market their films, to get them out there. They don't just sort of wash their hands. And I think it's a great sort of attitude to have, whatever sort of stage in the industry you're at.
I think we have to, if we want other people to work really hard, we've got to work hard too first. We got to kind of be driving it. And, no one will care more about the movies George and I make than probably George and me and maybe a select few people in our close networks around us. But, and I certainly saw in my effects career, even the difference between like a $10 million movie and a $100 million movie actually wasn't that much. The $10 million was trying to be a $50 million movie, and the $100 million was trying to be a $250 million movie. Just the ambition it almost keeps you alive. It's the fuel, isn't it? That actually we might have $100 million, but we've only got, we're trying to get so much more. And I think it's, I think George is right. The positive attitude, positive people. We were so fortunate that we had so many great people on Black Dog. But I think over, as many people I'm sure have experienced in this business, you sometimes meet people that aren't quite so nice or aren't quite so kind of focused on being as good a human being as perhaps they could be. And we just
that's an understatement. Some horrible bastard narcissist.
Well, I don't want to throw out any labels, but we just won't accept it. If that's who you are, then good luck to you, but you probably won't be on one of our movies. It has to be a really welcoming, supportive, empowering, encouraging environment that, just trying to help people unlock their potential. And if their potential is they're just running, I don't mean just, but they're running the social media campaign. Like, well, how do we help you? It's just everything about it is, it takes that energy.
It's not hard to like remain kind through this industry. Like,
it's really not, no. We shouldn't be. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really not tricky. And I think you also realize, I think the second thing for me is knowing what I need to as a director to get my best work. I think is like, I know, for example, I like having my own monitor on set. I don't like anyone near my shoulders, because all of a sudden, if Ken's over my shoulder, I'll be watching where he breathes, not watching the screen. I'll be like, why'd you side there?
Interesting.
And I think that's something you just learn too, and you go, right, well, that's important. And I had a moment the other day, I directed an advert that comes out in a couple of weeks, and it was, I did my prep, and I'd never had this on set. I'd done all my prep, sent my shot list to the first AD, to the producers and stuff like, and it's usually, Ken and I keep that like pretty much to ourselves and the first AD and a few others. They printed it, and I was like, why are you printing it? I was like,
all around the studio for
on a board, and I was like, whoa. And that was scary too, because I was like, I won't, that's like there as a guideline, but that's not. So it's also about like realizing like, you always need to over communicate. You always need to be like everything, even when you think, you're teaching someone to suck eggs. It's like, just say it, because there's no, even if people roll their eyes, you're just like, at least I said it.
Yeah, at least you said it. This has been incredible. What a fantastic hour and a half of chat about filmmaking,
feature length
chat, career and lives, and also about Black Dog. The film is out now, everyone. You can go watch this movie. It came out on the 19th of August, so it is available for you now. I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much. You can go out there and make your indie films. You can do it if you're lucky enough to rise up and do well. It is your duty to
Send the dogs and the seals back down.
We will see you all next Tuesday. George Jaques, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Ken Petrie, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks,
yes,
Giles.
take care, everyone. Dom, thank you, buddy. You say thanks, Giles, and then
Thanks, Giles.
Right, cool. We will see you all next Tuesday, everyone. We've got someone amazing next Tuesday. I'm not sure who it is yet, but it is someone amazing because we haven't scheduled it in, but we've recorded it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway, we will see you next week. Thanks, boys. Take care.
Thank you.
Good luck with Black Dog
Thanks.
release. Everyone go watch this amazing film. Go watch it. Support indie film.
Yeah.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks.